All right. So I'd like to, you know, welcome you all to today's workshop on the financial aid process, the FAFSA application, and any other paperwork that you'll need on your way to securing a great financial aid package, and which includes scholarships from your future colleges. I'm Dr. Ivan Khan, the CEO of Khan Co-Presenter, and today I'm joined by an esteemed colleague of ours, Fariya, who will be joining me in our presentations for today. So if we take a look at the chat box, we can see we're asking all of our attendees to, we have about 15 of us here, and we want to make it interactive. So we're not going to have this presentation without your participation. So please, let's hear from you all. Type into the chat box where you go to school, what year you are, and one thing you're looking forward to learning about the financial aid process. And then once we have a critical mass of answers and responses and introductions from our attendees today, we will continue with the topic at hand. Big thanks to Salada, Danielle, a few of you. A few of you have completed our GPA program, a few of you have completed our SAT program, so congratulations to all the seniors in the house. I just had a chance to speak to a lot of the proud parents. You have a lot of folks who've tried out for early decision, which is good news for some families. Getting back to the drawing board for regular decision for some others. And for everyone else, we are approaching the deadlines for a regular decision. We have someone from Hunter High School as a senior, Salata, welcome. We have Regis High School senior in the house, welcome Daniel. And to anyone else, if you can please, continue your intros as we get started. We will, be able to tie back your answers to the topic at hand. So let's get an understanding about how financial aid works in the United States. You have to keep in mind that 33% of graduates every year receive an average of about $8,000 in federal loans. That's not counting other types of loans. Some other quick stats: 40% of college students, undergraduates means college students, receive an average of $5,000 in federal grants. Remember, grants are stuff that you don't have to pay back. So even though about $8,000 we're all getting as students that we have to pay back, an additional $5,000 on average are grants that we don't have to pay back. And at least 3/4 of college-age women accept student financial aid, most of the time in non-federal grants. So federal is in the country, and other types of grants include state, private, and other types of grants we'll talk about. Other statistics include the fact that 85% of first-year college students receive financial aid in some form. So if you're the first person in your family to go to college in this country, you're likely going to be in that 85%, 90% of kids. And also keep in mind that the average that each student can borrow is $11,000. So even though the average in this country is $12,000, it may be a lot higher for certain schools in the Northeast, whether it's public, private, and depending on the cost of living in that state. Public university attendees can borrow an average of $30,000 in total to attend a bachelor's, and parents borrowing on behalf of their children can accept an average about $12,500 every year. So, even though students are turning 18, in reality, a lot of parents are part of that equation, and that's why we have so many parents here today. So before we go to the timeline, Fariya, welcome. Thank you so much. How was your first semester, and how are you feeling about today's topic?
Yeah, so I actually just wrapped up my first semester of my sophomore year of college, and it's been great so far. And yeah, I'm just super excited to discuss some of the resources that we can offer and kind of understanding the financial aid process.
Thank you so much. And if you want to give us a little bit of background on your institution, your college that you chose, and please pardon my correction, you are a second year, so you'll already have a year and a half under your belt. So take us through what life is like there and any background information on Umass for anyone that's curious.
Yeah, so I'm a sophomore at Amherst College, which is pretty great. It has an open curriculum, and one of the really interesting things about the school that really attracted me to it was the fact that they actually don't give students loans. So all the money that you receive is through grants and scholarships. And they don't really require students to take out loans. So I actually didn't have to pay anything for my freshman year of college. And they're changing some of their policies that way students who have a lower family contribution actually won't have to pay at all for the next couple of years, which is amazing. So each school offers something different with regards to its financial aid package. So that's something that's really important to keep in mind.
That's amazing. So I'm guessing there are other types of schools similar to Amherst that also have a policy where they minimize the amount of loans the students take, and it's mostly fully on grants and items where we don't have to pay it back, pretty much hopefully getting something close to a free ride. So
Exactly.
I'll go through the timeline a little bit. We have, this conversation may be happening on December right now, but a lot of this information that we have to start gathering should have started in July to September. Wanted to research local scholarships. You want to look up net price calculators that you can use online. You also have to look up deadlines for both your early decision, which has already passed us, you have regular decision deadlines, and also deadlines for financial aid. The CSS profile became available on October 1st. The FAFSA has been available all year long. And it's really between December, January, when you'll be putting the final finishing touches to your applications. That may require visits to your guidance counselor, workshops like today's, and advice from family and friends who've gone through the process. So Fariya, where were you? Where did you begin in your financial aid journey during your college application process when you were a graduate?
I think for me, when I was applying to colleges, one of the things that I was looking at was the kind of aid that I'd be receiving. So one of the things that I was looking at was the net price calculator, I think that you mentioned. I think the College Board offers one as well. That's not the most accurate, but it's a great place to start. And so based off of some of the numbers that I was getting, I used that as a kind of reference to determine like what schools I'd want to apply to.
Were you fearful when you saw the price tag? It's like buying a car and you see that huge receipt type thing and all these numbers keep adding up. Same thing with colleges. How did that make you feel as a junior or sophomore, when you junior or senior in high school, when you're researching and you see these like 60, 70 grand price tags?
Yeah, it was definitely really scary. And I spoke to I'm lucky because I have two older siblings, and they told me like they went through the same thing as well, but you always manage to find a way to pay your way through college if that's something that you decide is for you. So there's always a way through it, and it can seem pretty daunting. But just remember that you're going to find some way to pay for it. And for me, seeing those big numbers was terrifying. We're like a single income household, especially. My dad's a cab driver. So I was really nervous about how we'd be able to pay, but you're always able to make ends meet.
Thank God. And with a lot of students and a lot of kids in New York City, historically, first generation immigrants, first one to go to college along with your siblings in this country. So I think that's a place that a lot of us at cons may be familiar with. Let's keep going on to what the FAFSA is. Let's get to it. So the FAFSA is the main form, the free application for student aid. It's the main form that you have to start filling out, studentaid.gov, to be eligible for financial aid and tuition assistance. This is really related to the federal type of support that you'll get from the government and any other entities that they partner with to ensure either financial aid in the form of grants, which you don't have to pay back, whether state or federal. And then over time, it gets into the whole question of loans. So how much can you get can depend on two main things. Depends on how much your family is earning into their tax returns, into their pay stubs, and the size of your family. So those two factors, the number of siblings you have, if you have maybe some dependents in the family, some grandparents or not, that can help determine the expected contribution that each family has to make. So that's where the FAFSA becomes a really, really important entity. We have the screenshot of what the FAFSA website has looked like for so many years. And it consists of general basic information. Like anytime you sign up for any of your favorite websites like Netflix or a Hulu account, you have the student demographics. Over here, it's a school selection. And then it gets into more stuff like dependency status, parent demographics, and financial information. So Fariya, Without bringing back too many of these scary application memories, what do you remember about filling this out? Was it scary? And who did you have with you to help you along the process?
I remember not understanding what half of the terms were meaning. Looking at FAFSA, there's a lot of questions you have to fill out, and I looked at half of it and I just didn't know what was going on. But I think that um, one of the great things is Google. So I was able to really just look at online resources to kind of figure out what each of the different terms was meaning. Like I learned what a gross annual income was for the first time, little things like that that I didn't know before. It's great that now you have so many resources to kind of learn about it. And even as you're working through your FAFSA, FAFSA itself has a little like question mark that you can click on that'll give you more information about a specific term and where you can find that information on your tax returns.
So it's a lot of jargon you have to learn from your own learning. Did your high school, you went to a really specialized high school? Did they give you a lot of background information on how to fill out the FAFSA before senior year, or how much support were you able to get there?
Yeah, so I went to Stuyvesant High School, and they didn't really start much college prep until I would say like your spring semester of your junior year of high school. And even then, it was really limited. And you learn most of what you do learn for college applications during your senior year of high school. Um, and they definitely weren't super thorough, but I think that they give a nice kind of introduction. And I think it's important to remember that high school and your guidance counselors really are a great resource for kind of having a preliminary introduction into financial aid and college applications.
It sounds like it's a great resource for the general understanding and intro. But any of the deeper level stuff, it's really up to the families themselves to find that information out. So let's get to the student demographics: social security number, date of birth, citizenship status, work study interest, home address, parents' education, contact information. I think everything there seems pretty normal. But when you're in New York City and there's so many immigrants, did you ever face classmates at STY who are worried about the citizenship status form, and any advice you have for kids who may not have their citizenship sorted yet?
Yeah, I think I know that that was definitely something that a lot of my peers were nervous about. And I think that it's finding a trusted adult, right? Or someone who isn't a kind of mandatory reporter and asking them about the kind of resources that you can access.
Perfect. And oftentimes the school is a safe place for that. School leaders, college leaders, most college guidance counselors are familiar with figuring out ways to help students that may not have a complete documentation status, which a lot of us have gone through if you're new to this country from other areas. So moving on, we have school selection. So during the FAFSA application, you will be required to place in which schools you plan to apply to, because they'll send it to those colleges. So as those colleges look at your application and they make that decision, in one room, there's another separate room, they claim, where they'll be having to deal with the financial aid aspect of it. Traditionally, decisions should not be based on whether students are getting financial aid or not, but we don't know how that's done in the colleges, so we have to take that with a little bit of a grain of salt. Any advice for school selections here for that portion of the FAFSA?
No, I think it's important to remember that your income shouldn't affect whether or not a school should accept you. I think that that can be something that's demoralizing if you think about it sometimes, that like they might not take you if you can't afford it, but it's important to remember that that's not always the case.
Absolutely. And there's so many colleges that are advanced and have thought out all those ways to accommodate different types of students. Not every college is meant to be, for the highest paying students. And in fact, more and more colleges are figuring out ways that they can, increase the diversity on campus as COVID takes a hit on the usual application cycle and the way folks are applying. Dependency status, we'll discuss, the relationship to your parents and who's home and who's not, and where you fit into that. Some students very rarely may have an independence that they've gained from their families before that, but usually the child is, a dependent of the parents when applying. And parent demographics include address, date of birth, education level, and other information such as household information. Anything you want to add here? I know we have a lot of students, like I'm, originally from Bangladesh. My parents didn't go to college in this country. I had to fill out their education level, but anything that you want to add to this part of the parent demographics for you and the students?
I think that this is one of the more difficult things that for me to fill out, at least when I was doing it for the first time, especially because my parents did have the opportunity to go to college in Bangladesh, but it was hard, like putting the name of their college into a little search bar and not getting any kind of output and needing to figure out the details about their school myself.
So please know that there are like universities listed and per country, and it's often possible that our parents, whatever schooling they did, and their institution may not be matched to this website all the way thousands of miles away. So in those cases, take that time to learn about your family's history and proudly put that institution on paper. And just know that every single child has a unique story and family history, and that's what's unique to you. So here we go. We're getting closer and closer to the financial information. Through our parents' jobs, they should be getting some sort of receipts called pay stubs, and at the end of the year, they have to submit W-2s to complete their tax returns. So this is where you're going to have to start creating your FAFSA ID and make sure to fill this aspect out as far as the financial, the paperwork that you have to submit. Anything you want to share about how early the parents should have their paperwork ready? Should it be keeping it from sophomore and junior year so they don't have to scramble in the last minute? What do you want to share about the type of financial information we should ask our parents to reserve?
Yeah, I think that it's definitely important that I was lucky that my parents actually keep all of their tax files like neatly filed away and everything was there for me to kind of sort through when it was time. And so I'd really recommend that to all the parents out there. Because having this kind of information available and organized for your child makes the process a lot easier.
Thank you so much. And that's why for these workshops, we really want to make sure parents are part of the process, especially for this topic. Parents may not need to be part of the personal statement topic, but the financial aid one, we absolutely encourage all parents to be here for it. If you're a student right now watching and your parents in the home, if you need to just bring them over, all of this will matter to them, and it will save you the time having to re-explain it from scratch to them. So this is a quick mention of the institutional documentation service. It matches your application to those colleges that you've listed. Faria, did you apply to more than 10 colleges, less than 10 colleges? Is there anything you want to share about, this aspect of the IDOC portion of matching your application so the right colleges can get those applications?
I think I applied to about 20. I did as many as you could possibly do. So I think I might have done 20 colleges through my Common App and maybe like two or three more besides that. And for the IDOC, I think it's just a matter of staying on top of it and making sure you're organized. Like with financial aid, have a spreadsheet. Do what you have to do to stay on top of everything and make sure you submit all the forms that you have to, because otherwise it's really going to catch up to you.
So again, the more items you have, the more schools you're applying to, you're going to have to manage a lot, stay organized. And if you are fearful that you're not so organized, get the help of a parent or an older sibling to help keep you organized from all this paperwork stuff. So, we're wrapping up the first part of our presentation for today. We do have a sample award letter. Hopefully, a lot of you will be getting these types of award letters with much higher rates. Faria, you want to take us through this in a New York minute, and then because we have a few others that we'll be able to look at in later presentations.
I think it's really important to kind of focus on the totals, and especially the subcategories, like focus on what's the total amount you're getting from grants and scholarships, how much are you getting from loans, and then try to figure out what your actual cost is going to be after you take all of those things into account.
When you speak to your friends, are they all in the same situation? Like, so the other students in your school, are they all in a situation where they're getting just grants, or does anyone in your college have any loans?
I think some people in my college might have loans, but I think a lot of my friends are also low income, and so a lot of us do get grants and scholarships, fortunately.
Well, thankfully, the cost of college is taken care of, especially for a school that's as understanding as Amherst. Hopefully, more and more places can take these policies on to ensure that their entire student body can take a full advantage. So in summary, get an estimate of the net cost of the colleges on your list. Fill out your financial aid applications and your CSS profile as soon as possible, which we'll be speaking about right after this. And keep an eye out for any emails from the FSA or College Board regarding your applications. And also be diligent when filling out your applications, and always stick to the deadlines. So before we transition over to the CSS profile, which will be really important for more of the private colleges and the private scholarships, I'd love to pause right here for 2-3 minutes and open it up to the audience for questions. If you've been having questions about which colleges you want to go to, and you're worried about paying for them, now's the time to start asking those questions. Let's go for our first question and answer session, beginning now. Faria, please feel free to start tackling the questions as you see fit. I'm just going to set up for the technology for the next screen share.
All right, sounds good. Yeah, each college offers a different kind of package. So Sulata, could you kind of talk about what college you have in mind and what you're curious about? So generally, they on your financial award statement, they always say how much you get from grants and scholarships, how much you can possibly get from loans, and there's a bunch of different kinds of loans you can take out. And it also lists out the different costs, like your tuition, housing, dining, little things like that. And at the end of the day, all the way at the bottom, it should say somewhere how much you are expected to pay each semester. And on FAFSA, it says family contribution, and are those the amounts our parents are expected to pay? And yeah, that's how much your parents are expected to pay. Okay. Hopefully, Ivan, at the end of the presentation, can pull up the slide again about the average amount of the federal grants that Daniel is mentioning, and you get a chance to write that down.
More than happy to do that. And one final question from Tasneem before you go into CSS profile.
Yeah, and she asks, when should students apply for FAFSA? I would say do it as early as possible, especially as you're wrapping up your college applications this winter. I think the deadline for the common application is right before New Year's. I think that this would really be a great time to sit down with your parents and kind of fill out that form to make sure it doesn't get lost in the shuffle. I'll pass it back to you, Ivan.
Thank you so much. Great questions. We're really grateful to have our part one. We have 3 parts today. Part 1 questions are good to go, and we're so proud of that. So the CSS profile, let's take a look at this, because this is something that is a little bit more complicated in what you have to fill out when compared to the FAFSA, and it can maybe take 30 minutes longer. And because of that extra 30 minutes, thousands and thousands and maybe millions of 12th graders every single year neglect to fill out the CSS profile. And because of that, the federal government has about $2 billion left over every single year in unused money because of the fact that the CSS profile was something that students were not filling out to completion the way they were the FAFSA. So applying with the CSS profile gives access to more than $9 billion of thousands of undergraduate, graduate, and professional studies. Let's find out how that's different. The CSS profile is necessary, and it has a preliminary understanding of your family's financial situation. And there'll be a major role in your merit scholarships or grants. So merit-based scholarships are oftentimes given heavily by schools, oftentimes mid-sized schools, sometimes the smaller schools, and it can depend heavily on your GPA or your standardized test score. And oftentimes 2 students can get into the same college. However, one of them can earn a significant financial aid boost by filling out the CSS profile, even if they have the same exact qualifications because they applied for it. So necessary documents include pretty much a lot of the same stuff you'll need to fill out the FAFSA as it is. So that includes current federal income tax returns, past federal years income tax returns, W-2 forms, records of the last 2 years untaxed income. So it's all tax documentation that we get from our jobs, and any other records of investments like stocks and trusts and anything else like that. So parents info, again, parents data, date of birth, social security number, address, marital status, parents current income and benefits, parents past year income and benefits. So as you see, a lot of this information is repeating itself from that similar application you just did. The thing is, you just have to take the time and the effort to complete both. They will ask about your parents' assets in case they own any homes or any other stocks and company shares, anything like that. And also maybe a slightly closer idea of your parents' expenses. Just today, maybe an hour before this conversation, this workshop started, I was speaking to two twins, and they're both here today. And if you're a set of twins or you have siblings within 2-3 years, your parents have to figure out how to pay or help each of you pay and get through college. So that's a situation where taking the time to complete the CSS profile will go a long way. So I'll stop right there at student info. Faria, do you remember filling out the CSS profile, or was it just yet another form in the sea of financial aid forms you had to complete?
I think it was more so the latter, and the FAFSA just felt so much bigger.
So the FAFSA process actually felt longer and lengthier, and it just felt like the big umbrella, and CSS was like one aspect of it.
Yeah, so I'd recommend doing the CSS after. It felt more like an afterthought when I was applying to college, just because it's just a lot more condensed.
Sounds good. And I think one of the things they've done is actually they've continued to make the CSS more readily available and more simplified as the years have gone on, to encourage more and more minority students and students of color to make sure to apply, because there's still billions of dollars left on the table every single year. So moving on, family demographic info, family member listings, explanations or certain special circumstances the family may be facing, whether it's a health battle, God forbid, or any COVID job losses or anything like that. Supplemental questions that they may ask. And there are always tips on how to answer some questions if you don't have the most recent data. And again, it may seem tedious, but the best take a few hours with your parents and thoroughly complete it, and you can open yourself up to a lot more money. Just a quick note, if you happen to make any changes, you have to resubmit the FAFSA to go back to the other application and make sure, hey, I have some new information updated there. Please don't go off of my old information. You have to resubmit the FAFSA so it can get connected to the updated information you're entering. Anything before we go on to the second financial aid package letter? Faria, do you want to add anything for this?
No, I think we're all good. And feel free to keep any questions coming in the public chat. I know we're trying to respond to them as they come.
Awesome. All right. So for the part 2, we have another sample financial aid award. Again, they don't always look the same. And oftentimes banks and lenders will make certain packages very, very confusing to read. So if you don't mind taking a minute and explaining each box, Faria, some of these things may be a little bit too much jargon. If you don't mind just giving us a quick refresher on what it is. And then we'll pause for our break, our halftime break.
Yeah, I really had to zoom in there because like Ivan said, it gets really nitty gritty. But like Ivan had mentioned earlier, at the end of filling out your FAFSA, they'll tell you the estimated family contribution, which is what you see at the top. And that's kind of a good way to gauge how much your college might expect you or your family to contribute to your higher education. And so it also lists out various costs like tuition, housing, little things like that. And after that, it'll describe different ways that you can get some aid, so scholarships, grants, And finally, it's going to talk about how much your college expects you to pay, right? And that's the cost, that's the number that everybody freaks out about because it's pretty scary. But it also provides different ways to pay for that number, and to pay for your college experience. So again, you can take out loans. There's also a great work study options. So you can reach out to your school about different ways that you can work during college, and they pay you. And the intention is that using that money that you earn while working on campus, you can help pay for your college.
Quick question. If I'm a student from New York and I happen to get into college in Atlanta, and the starting wage for that state is like $9. What are most jobs on campus paying? Because campus jobs may be the same, but starting wages are different in New York than it is in Atlanta. So have you heard of anything different for other friends and classmates in different states?
I think from my understanding, your wage in college really depends on where you are. There's no kind of standard. For example, I think my sister went to Bard College, which was in upstate New York, where they had a lower minimum wage, and that's why she made less than say I did at my school. So it all really depends on where you go to school, and based on that, that's how much you get paid.
Thank you. So before we continue with question and answer, we're going to pause for 5 minutes. It is 3:05. We do recognize that of our 31 participants today, at least 20 of you have been some of our star SAT graduates. So I do want to congratulate a lot of you here in the room today for your success. We've had some tremendous scores starting from the 1400s to 1500s. So if you check your emails, we do have the 5-star Google review form. We do have the link sent to you all. We are taking a break for 5 minutes. The next portion that we'll be continuing at 3:10 will be the scholarships and grants section. The scholarships and grants section will be discussing places where you can find scholarships, how you can apply for them, the number one reason that most kids don't even apply, how you can get grants and scholarships, and how you can be wary about loans. So from our list of students that are, part of our SAT list, we've emailed you, all of our graduates of our program, we've emailed you the link. So if you can please take 5 minutes to please leave a quick review, and then we're going to continue at 3:10. And parents, if you're here in place of your child, and you're getting the email, we really appreciate you're taking the time to leave a review for us if you've had a good experience at Khan's. And we're going to be continuing with the rest of the conversation in just a minute as I switch screens. And as the folks get a chance to complete your reviews or get a quick glass of water, use the facilities, do want to give a quick, big congratulations to our fall scorers from Haseen in the 12th grade with a 1560, to Nicholas with a 1530, to Yamin with a 1520, to Samir 1510, to Daniel with a 1440, to Anaf, Maliha, and Sakif for your 1420s and 1400s. I did start off with the congratulations and shout outs to the 12th graders. It's been quite the journey with so many of you. A lot of you, I recognize your names and our visits when we were in person from your SHSAT program. And you've gone on to some fantastic high schools, and now you're at the finish line. And besides our students in the 12th grade, we do have a few others that I'd like to, in the 11th grade, that I'd like to recognize. Tausif, who's a sophomore with a 1510, Diaz, who's a sophomore with a 1510, Sajida, Namira, Mritika, Abid, Arman, Jawad, and Sheikh Islam. All of you 11th graders, I know so many of you are here today. So it's really gratifying and nice to see all of you come this far. So all the seniors, let's keep track of all of the deadlines that are coming up this month. And for all of the juniors, we got next year, we're going to be going through this process next year. So Faria, are you able to see the screen for the scholarships, grants, HEOP, and TAP?
Yeah, we're all
Awesome.
set.
Awesome. So we will continue here. We still have about 30 of us here in the room. So scholarships, grants, HEOP, and TAP. Let's move along. All right, so scholarships can help pay for things your school may not cover. Things like books, materials, or even small items like laptops that you may not want to deal with that cost because laptops can be expensive. You also have, excuse me, sorry, and who's eligible for scholarship? Anyone who needs more money for college to pay to go to school. Like scholarships can come in many different forms. It can come from companies, it can come from community-based organizations, it can come from certain churches and synagogues and mosques and just organizations that work closely with the community. And when scholarships are around year-round, it's not like the federal portion where you apply once a year. Scholarships can be year-round. And Faria, let's take a guess. Let's ask the audience. What's the #1 reason why students don't apply for scholarships? Everyone, let's put your answers in. What's the #1 reason that most students do not apply for scholarships? Let's find that out. Love to have some participation from everyone. Please type in the #1 reason you think students are not applying for scholarships. Don't know where to find them. Absolutely. That's a good one. Too much effort. Yeah, it's just, too much effort because they don't know how to. Fear they won't get in. Yeah, of course. It's like, what? There's 10,000 kids writing the same 500-word essay and you expect me to win? I'm going to put all that effort in because the prize is just $1,000 and the cost of school is $50,000. So I think there's a combination of it's never going to happen to me. We treat it like the lottery. Like we're never going to, it's like we're having a better chance getting struck by lightning, God forbid. But the most important thing is you only get it if you apply. You can't get a scholarship without taking your shot. So scholarships are granted for a myriad of reasons, but they all provide monetary aid, and that's what matters most. Scholarships can vary widely in type and amount. So let's see what we got. We got merit-based, can depend on high standardized test scores or exceptional academic profile. It could be need-based. You could have a low income or a specific amount bracket that fits the needs for that scholarship. It could be a private scholarship. It could be corporate, a community organization, youth programs, religious institutions. So when it came to scholarships, Faria, how familiar were you with scholarships as a grade 11th grader or a 12th grader? And what do you wish you knew in the beginning of 11th grade now that you found out so much more?
As an 11th grader, not at all. I'll be honest. I didn't really start thinking about scholarships until I started freaking out about how much I have to pay for college, which really comes, as you get more into the process your senior year of high school. And so one of the things that I felt was really helpful was doing as many searches as possible and everywhere possible. And I love spreadsheets. And so just trying to keep that information organized about deadlines, about what you need to do to apply, about what kind of students they're looking for is really, really helpful.
Thank you so much. So as you get into the senior year, when you're really trying to pay attention to them, there are different types of scholarships. You got company-based. You got the one that I always think about, the writing-based ones with those long essays, and you're thinking, oh my gosh, I have to think about it, outline it, proofread it, and all those things that go into it. Community service, if you're able to show commitment to volunteering and have a lot of community service hours. Or an athletic talent. Keep in mind that things like volleyball, crew, fencing, lacrosse, those are some popular collegiate sports that can get a lot of kids into this bracket of some athletic scholarships. So, and of course, anything else, legacy scholarships or any other unique scenarios that they want to talk about. Anything here look familiar to you as far as your applications? Did you apply to a lot or did you apply to a few? And what about your best friends? Like, were they applying to a lot of scholarships? Were they fearful of not getting in? What do you think the number one reason is that people didn't apply?
In my experience, I think that it was most intimidating to look at the writing-based scholarships, which is why a lot of my friends didn't apply. A lot of the time, they do expect you to write this kind of essay. But the good thing is that after having just written the Common App essay, which is your personal statement, writing these smaller prompts should be a lot easier, especially if you kind of plan ahead and try to figure out when the different deadlines are and when you'd be able to squeeze in that little time it takes to write that essay.
Time
But I
management.
know that,
Go ahead.
yeah, sorry, I was just gonna say, but I know that a lot of my friends were too intimidated to apply as well, because it can be pretty daunting.
So rather than sit it out, your suggestion is to maybe find the ones that are easier to get started on and break them up into pieces. And if you have a few delivered, can you maybe even reuse certain ones in case the descriptions fit well? And you don't have to rewrite 10 different scholarship essays for 10 different scholarship applications.
Exactly.
Amazing. Another way to save some time. So common requirements. Certain scholarships will say, hey, you need to have a 90 GPA or 95 GPA, or you need to showcase your interest outside of school in a STEM field, because this is really geared towards rewarding students that have shown a commitment towards STEM. Some scholarships just require a cutoff on your standardized tests. Of course, essays are a very common way of applying for scholarships. And recommendation letters can sometimes come in handy depending on the type of programs. Do you know of any type of unique scholarship that any of your classmates received in high school based on any of these categories that you're familiar with, Faria?
Yeah, so one of the ones that me and a couple of my friends received was the National Merit Scholarship, which is a lot of you might be familiar with it, but not really know what it is. It's where if you take the PSAT, which is in your sophomore and junior year of high school, depending on the score you can get a scholarship. And I think they let you know sometime during your senior year. So a lot of the time, my friends and I got scholarships based on our GPA, and based on our standardized test scores, because those are also the easier ones to knock out.
So it's almost like you have to take standardized test scores sometimes to get into the selective colleges as it is. And with those, you can hopefully submit those for certain types of scholarship programs. Was there ever a cutoff amount, dollar amount, that just made you think, it's not worth it? Or was there like a minimum dollar amount? If it's for 5K, I'll definitely put in 3 days. But if it's one day, if 1,000, I'm going to put in 2 hours. Did you have a little bit of a filter there?
I think if it was things that were due around the same time, yeah, I'd kind of prioritize. But generally, if I saw that they were giving money, I would apply to anything and everything.
So I think to your point, we can't be choosy, because the more choosy we are, the less we're going to be rewarded, because we're not going to apply to as many. So apply a lot and you'll earn a lot, hopefully. And sometimes scholarships do require interviews. So similar to getting into a very competitive college or getting competitive program within a college, just be ready to have an interview in case they need to speak to just about your background. It'll rarely be about how much money is being made or anything like that in the home. It'll just be about you and who you are as an individual, and why you belong on that campus, etc. So grants. Grants can come from the federal government, your state government, your college or career school, or a private or nonprofit organization. The federal government provides grants for students attending college or career school. And most types of grants, unlike loans, are a source of free money that generally you don't have to be repaid. The biggest difference between college grants and scholarships is that grants for college are typically need-based. Scholarships can be need-based or merit-based. Is there anything you want to add to this or refute or challenge here, Faria, based on what you've seen play out on campus?
No, I think this really nails it. Grants are great. Any kind of money you get from your college that you don't have to pay back, pretty much anything besides loans, is always amazing.
Amazing. Let's keep it moving then. So here's something that's very special and close to my heart. About 20, 25 years ago, when I was a much younger person, my late dad would, seek out schools with the HEOP, opportunity for our students at cons. He'd say, hey, listen, so-and-so, we have something called a HEOP. It's a higher education opportunity program. And it looks like your family fits the needs right within a certain income level, household size. And oftentimes, the academic requirements to be eligible for HEOP may be a little different from the actual college itself. So since I was a child, I was able to hear from my dad very proudly, hey, this person got into Columbia and they have a really good financial aid package. This person's headed to NYU and they have a really good financial aid package. And over the years, I was able to learn that the secret that my dad was telling all these kids was about looking up the HEOP program, making sure to take advantage, not looking the other way, and taking a deep dive to do whatever you could to become eligible. Fariya, what's your familiarity with HEOP programs and anything you'd suggest for our students at cons, even 25 years later from the original conversations from our founder?
Yeah, HEOP is a great resource. So I was applying to a lot of schools out of state, so it didn't necessarily apply, but for my friends who did apply, it was really, really helpful.
Did they give you any idea of why it was helpful or how much the amounts could be or any which way that it kind of helped save or made their decision to attend one place or over another?
I wish I knew more about the logistics, but I did know that a lot of my friends were stressing about the finances of college, and just having these kinds of scholarships and grants really kind of eases that burden and, helps you imagine yourself, 2 or 3 years down the line going to whatever college you want to go to, regardless of how much you have to pay.
So absolutely take advantage of the HEOP program. And thank you so much, Fariya. The final one is the New York State Tuition Assistance Program. It's also reserved for those that meet certain eligibility of having a certain GPA, having a certain type of income, and it's very widely used. And I remember being a recipient of the TAP scholarship when I was a first year at Sophie Davis. And some of us used it for books. Some of us were able to buy our first pair of sneakers with that extra money just for something fun. But what's your familiarity with the TAP scholarship? Is that something that's common in because this is is it a New York State only program that you only hear about, or because it's something that may not be available in Massachusetts where you are?
Yeah, it's also one of the only New York State programs, which is I was pretty sad about that. But like almost everybody who I've spoken to from back home who has continued going to a school or college back home here in New York, I think all of them have gotten some form of TAP. So please apply. It's great. That's all I can.
Thank you. So, Faria, can you hear me well? Can you just speak in? I'm just making sure I can hear you.
Yeah, I can. Sorry.
Awesome. Because I just the noise dropped. So if you are going to school in New York State, just know that you do have the extra benefit of something called TAP, which a lot of other states may not. Certain states may have similar programs within their states, but if you are in New York, absolutely apply for that. So in summary, let's break it apart. Scholarships are granted for various reasons. They can all provide monetary aid. Grants come in the form of federal government, your state government, your college or career school, or private non-for-profit organization. HEOP selects students based on income level and offers students full need for the attended college. The Tuition Assistance Program is a New York State financial award that is added on top of your federal student aid. So all in all, we spent some time together. We're about to reach the hour. We're going to open it up for question and answers. So in summary, we had FAFSA, CSS, and scholarships and grants that we discussed today. We did not go into loans and the types of loans that exist, such as Stafford loans, Perkins loans, subsidized, non-subsidized. And that's something that we hope to have next month in January. But until then, let's open up the floor for questions for Fariya. We're going to be here for at least 10, 15 more minutes for a question and answer. And again, I've seen some students share responses with each other. If you can please direct your students to the open everyone chat box. And if you have the answers, please give it a shot and start sharing some of the knowledge that we all have. And one of the things we like doing at the end of every single lecture as we do a Q&A is please come up with 2 takeaways that you learned today. So as we go into our final stretch, to all of our attendees and parents too, please type in 2 things that you learned today, and let's open it up for some questions. Thank you, Fariya.
Yeah, 2 to 3 scholarships that I applied to. Well, for me, a lot of the things that I was doing was applying to specific programs that would get me through college. Like a lot of you might have heard of QuestBridge. That was one of them. There's also Posse Scholars. So especially for you juniors, those are really good programs that can help you pay your way through college. Um, so I can talk a little bit more about QuestBridge and Posse if you guys would like. So QuestBridge is where low income and first generation students, I believe, um, can get into school full ride by doing early decision to these. I think it's like 10 to 20 really elite colleges. And so what they do is there's this matching process where they match you to a specific college. And if you get matched, you don't have to pay throughout your 4 years of high school. So I have a lot of friends at my college who are QuestBridge scholars, and there's a lot of QuestBridge scholars around the country. Um, and even if you're not a QuestBridge scholars, generally that help. Even if you're not a QuestBridge scholar, that generally helps your school recognize that, hey, you're someone who might need a little bit more aid than students who are a lot more well off. Posse is also a really great program. It's where, for those of you who are in a lot of after school programs, you can have the leader of that after school program kind of nominate you to Posse, which is again similar to QuestBridge, where you kind of get matched with a school, and that's a really rigorous process too. You have to go through a couple of interviews, but it's really worthwhile because again, you know you're going to college because it's an early decision program, and also you know that you can afford it because they're paying for it for you. And there's also some small individual scholarships that you can find online. Again, I just Google searched it. I reached out to my guidance counselor. Guidance counselors are a great resource because this is what they're meant to do, right? Give resources to students like you all. So make sure to reach out to them, especially as you're considering the finances of college.
There's also an application, a phone app that I discovered last fall with last year's students. It's called Scholly, SCHOLLY. And it has a list of running scholarships and then the deadlines and what, some eligibility requirements for it all. So I'll type it into the chat box as folks type in their questions.
Okay, what did I do during my sophomore year about starting my college application? I think that it's really important to remember that, yes, it's really important to stay ahead of things when it comes to college and those applications, but it's also good to pace yourself because if you start doing everything all at once and considering everything all at once, it can get pretty overwhelming, and that's the last thing that anyone wants. So during my sophomore year of college, the only thing that I really focused on was making sure I did well on those standardized tests and making sure that I got those done. So I really focused on taking my SAT subject tests and doing well on my SATs. It's also really important that you do well in your regions and generally how well you do in school. And I think your sophomore year of high school is also a great time to kind of branch out and do clubs and also participate in organizations outside of college. Like I was in Girls Right Now, which is an organization that really kind of is meant to introduce young women into the writing industry. There's also some great art programs around the city. Um, so really just try to get involved because again, those are things your colleges are going to be considering as well. They're not just going to be looking at little things like how you do in school and how you do on these tests. They're also going to make sure that you built your life and how you are as an individual outside of academics. Yeah, so a lot of students are interested in sports, so they would be in a lot of like athletic clubs at school. I wasn't. I'm not very athletic. So some of the things that I did were more so outside of school. A lot of high schools offer some great writing clubs, engineering clubs, anything and everything you can imagine under the sun. But I really wanted to explore what life was like outside of my high school. And that's why I would reach out to my guidance counselor about different opportunities. So I did a bunch of different things. Again, I did that writing program. I did an art program where I helped make an exhibition. I did more sciencey programs, like working in a lab for a little bit. But there's a bunch of different opportunities around the city as long as you know where to look and you're willing to look. Is there a website you can go to find these types of outside school extracurricular programs easily? Unfortunately, there isn't really, or at least not that I know of. But again, your guidance counselor is a great resource. And as long as you're willing to put in a little Google search, like summer, I don't know, summer writing opportunities for high school students, you'll find something. And that's how I
Also,
found a lot of these programs.
fantastic questions and amazing answers. And I just wanted to add that the New York City Department of Education has tried to have a program called a Summer Youth Employment Program for high schoolers. And that's something that students can, in the spring can look up types of programs that they participate with through New York City, the DOE. And a lot of it was postponed or made virtual or canceled due to COVID. But if that can come back, that can give you some rich volunteering or internship experiences. And it can all depend on what your field is. Fariya has mentioned some amazing youth writing organizations meant to inspire certain groups. And of course, if you're entering healthcare, maybe volunteering at the hospital would go a long way. I do want to quickly congratulate Nico. I think I had his old score with us, Nicolas, at a 1510. His super score is a 1530 because they did come back and continue. So I do want to thank, we're going to keep going here for 5 or 10 more minutes. To everyone that's already submitted a Google form, a Google review, 5-star Google review. We really, really thank you all. And to everyone else that are the 12th graders, this week of the 22nd and 23rd, 29th and 30th, these 4 days I will be scheduling free half an hour last minute application counseling meetings for any 12th grader that's taking classes at Khans. I know with your applications due by January 1st or late December, if you needed to have a final 30-minute counseling meeting with your parents, we are scheduling that. So just email me here. That's for the 12th graders this year. And once those are done, by January, I can help work with all of the 11th graders that have visited us today. Once all the 12th grader applications are out, we can discuss, have those free meetings and counseling sessions continue with me privately with your parents for the month of January. Back to the questions for Fariya.
I think that some of the questions that I'm getting, or at least something that you all might be curious in, is how to know when to stop with extracurriculars and kind of what extracurriculars to get. I was someone in high school where I was like, if I do not like something and I know I don't like it, I'm not doing it. And if it's something that, I don't know if I like or not, then I'll give it a try. But otherwise, I wouldn't force myself to do it. And that's one of the things that you all, I feel like, is a pretty good practice for you all to be kind of maintaining. Don't force yourself to do something that you're not comfortable with just for the sake of making yourself look good. Because colleges can feel that. All that they're really looking for with these extracurriculars is to make sure that you're an actual person with feelings and interests and passions outside of academics, right? Because if you have somebody who's super smart that's coming to your college, but they don't care about anything, there's no point having a kind of robot on campus for 4 years, right? Because the college's goal is really to push students and get them to the places that they want to be later down the line. And Ivan, I think we have a question for you.
Hey, thanks, Nipa. So since I was a kid at Bronx Science, I really knew that I wanted to go to a combined medical program. My father and I talked about it a lot, and Sophie Davis was the #1 option for me. So I made sure to take my grades really seriously. And for as far as my extracurricular activities, I started early. I started the summer after my 9th grade, and I volunteered at the hospital that treated my father for his illness. Same hospital that both my children were born in. I put 500 hours from the summer after 9th grade throughout 10th grade, and I stopped the spring of my 11th grade. And even then, I also went over to Jamaica Hospital to do 50 or 100 more hours of volunteer work at their histology lab. Oftentimes, I think the 2 things that got me into an interview at Sophie Davis was the demonstrated commitment that I had to my extracurricular activities, and probably my SAT math score, which was really, really good in the number of APs I took. So all those things really helped me. Thank you for that question. The time is 3:35, and it is December 18th. We're a week away from Christmas. and we want to make sure everyone can, enjoy their holidays with their loved ones. We have a few more minutes for a few more questions for Faria or for myself. Again, this taping will be available on YouTube of today's workshop for any parents. Once you get those, if you need to share it with your family and friends. In January, we will have another workshop like this on loans. Loans are something we all need to be wary about, and we never want to take on too many loans. Congratulations to everyone that's earned a financial aid package. So Faria, I got a question for you. I got a lot of kids getting offers from Adelphi, Hofstra, good, solid schools, and they're getting financial aid packages of 90 grand, 100 grand. Is that per year or all 4 years, Faria, you think?
I have to admit, I got a little bit lost. I think it's per year.
So, but the thing is, their financial aid letter is saying your financial aid package is worth 100 grand. So they're making it sound really impressive, but that's over how many years of college?
That's over 4 years.
So what's the true financial aid contribution from the college for 4 years, for each of those years?
Only 25K.
What's the price of attending Hofstra University or Adelphi University?
A lot more than 25K. I think it's like 60 to 80 most of the time.
So let's say it's 60,000, but they're giving my kid 100 grand over 4 years. So it's 60 minus 25. That's like what?
35K.
$35,000 a year that family has to pay to get that degree from Hofstra or Adelphi. So if you multiply that by 4 years, you have $110,000 loans you have to pay back right after college. If they're at about 6%, and we have $110,000 in student loans, times 1.06 at the end of 1 year, give me a ballpark of what that loan amount's going to go up to.
I don't think I want to know the number.
It's 116,000. At the end
Yeah.
of 2 years, that's going to be 123,000. So I just want to give that warning to all the parents here and to all the students here. Read the fine print. I'd be really excited if one of my children got $100,000 from a top place like Hofstra or NYU or Pace or Fordham. If I look at the print, so over 4 years, that's only 25K. That means I got to pay the difference, or my kid does. So you got to be really, really careful to not fall for some of these traps that the colleges and sometimes these financial institutions will set. That you don't want to walk right into a life of forever debt. And those are things we'll be speaking about in the January workshop. Anything you want to add to that case? Because a lot of our students are getting these offers and these letters. And we'll also hopefully talk about ways to negotiate a better financial aid package by January. Anything else you want to add to that before we sign off for today's workshop, Faria?
Yeah, if you're unclear on anything regarding your financial aid package, don't assume anything. Reach out to the actual financial aid office at that college, and they're going to be happy to help.
All right. Nipa, are you still here? Nipa is our Chief Operating Officer at Khans, graduate of Barnard College, Columbia School of Public Health. Any parting words for our amazing students before we send everyone off to their Christmas break and New Year's break and holiday break, and we'll see them in January?
Hi, yes, just wanted to wish everyone good luck on their filling out their financial aid packages. Please do fill it out ASAP. I asked in the chat a few key questions on purpose, just so we remind you to fill out the FAFSA now, even though the deadline to fill out the FAFSA, for example, is in June of next year. Fill it out now so you can get all the money that is available to you in advance, or else it will run out. And don't be afraid to look for those scholarships. Remember, QuestBridge, Posse, and anything else that you can find on the internet, and also contact your guidance counselors, contact us privately for a list of scholarships to apply to. Please do so, because you do have a great opportunity to reduce the cost of your college drastically by taking these steps and following the advice of everyone on this workshop. And if you have any other questions, please feel free to email Dr. Ivan Khan and Farah in whenever you can. Thank you so much, and good luck to you all.
Thank you all for joining us. Happy holidays, everyone. See you in January.